Choosing the perfect anchor text. Never guess again. Hi everybody, this is Mike here with SERP Focus today, and I'm going to go over something that I get asked all the time, and that is, what anchor text should I be using for my backlinks? Especially when it comes to the PBN service, we get a lot of people who place orders and then are saying, well, do we do branded links? Do we do URL? Should I set my keyword? Really no concept of how to determine what backlink anchor text to use, and on top of that, what even type of strategy that they're looking to follow to determine that anchor text. So it brings me to the first point I want to make, is that there's really only three ways to choose your anchor text. Okay, and the first way is to choose your anchor text based on your own data, right? So this is based on data that you've gathered from ranking previous sites, based on data that you are familiar with a niche, maybe a location if you've ranked a lot of other things within that town. So essentially you have experience, you have some previous data to base your strategy on. The second way to choose your anchor text is to base your anchor text on other people's data, right? Not what they're training or telling you to do, but actual data. Either you know someone who's worked in that niche, maybe you've experimented in that niche and ranked a few keywords, and now you're trying to dominate the first page, and you really have experience, or you know people that have experience with ranking these sites. Now, of course, we also have Google's data, so we can look at the first page of Google and see the people that are already ranking and use their data as well. Now, of course, when you use backlink aggregators, like Ahrefs and Majestic, there may be links that they don't pick up. There's PBNs, there's all different types of things. But essentially you can base it on the data we have, right? And that's better than option number 3, which is basing your backlink anchor text on no data. Absolutely no data. You're essentially just guessing, and that is what most people primarily do when selecting their anchor text. They don't base it on any data at all. Either they just go by a YouTube video that says use more URL now, or use more brand links, or exact match anchor text is working, so start using that more. 10% this or 5% that. That's not data, that's just things that people are saying, and that means you're essentially just guessing at what anchor text you should use. So that is exactly why I want to make this video, so you don't have to guess anymore, and you can start using actual data to pick your anchor text and not have to worry about, is it the right anchor text, are you going to get penalized, are you doing something that looks unnatural, all those things that kind of get in the way. So now that we have that out there, that we don't want to guess on our anchor text, we want to start basing it on data, either what Google's already telling us, people we know that have actual data supporting ranking in that niche, or our own data, right? So assuming we're starting in a brand new niche and we have never experienced ranking in this niche, we have no concept of anchor text or anything, really all we have is the sites that Google is currently showing us on the first page of Google. So we can analyze the top 3 sites, we can analyze the top 5 sites, we can analyze the top 10 sites. You can take an average, you can essentially try and mimic a specific site if it's matching your content or your brand, as in it's an EMD, or it's a brand name, and the other ones are different. There's many different ways you can kind of take all that data, right, and interpret it and say, okay, so this is the average of the exact match, or so many different variables there. So the one thing that we really need to do if we're going to successfully analyze the competition in a way that will not just give us an idea of anchor text ratio or concept of strategy, but if we want to really get a solid understanding of what Google is seeing in their anchor text that is painting this picture, right, that's allowing them to show up on the first page or in the top 3 or top 5 spots for their primary keyword, that's the understanding we really need to have. So in order to really get that full big picture understanding, we really need a keyword anchor text classification system. And this is really what has allowed me to kind of advance my understanding of anchor text and backlinks and how they interact with the content on my site, and also how other people are, optimizing their sites or using their strategies. Without having a clear understanding of anchor text classification, you still have those variables. You still have those things that people say you should do, or that will help your rankings, but there's really no rhyme or reason. Does it make sense to do that, or will it actually help, or is it potentially dangerous? Or it could hurt my site. People talk about keyword splitting, right? Or you use a brand plus keyword anchor text, or you use a URL. There's all these different kind of anchor text you could possibly use, and without a defined keyword classification system, we can't really identify what Google is seeing. So many years ago, when I first got into SEO, I understood that there were different types of anchor text, and depending on the type of anchor text, it would either contain keywords in a certain variation. There was just essentially either in relation to my target keyword, right? People say exact match anchor text. Now, exact match anchor text means that the anchor text is the exact keyword that you're targeting. And then there's URLs, there's brand, right? But there's all these other things in there that we really need to account for. So what I want to do is first take you through my keyword classification, my anchor text classification system, so you get a full understanding of what type of anchor text there really are. What different types of relevance or keyword anchor text strings and things can you really create that is diversified, that Google normally sees, that would be able to take exactly the anchor text ratios and what is happening with currently ranking on the first page, and start using that in our own campaign. So for this example, I'm going to use Chicago SEO. It's just a common example I always use because my site is ranking a lot more keywords recently. It's dropped because I've dropped a lot of links. I'm even going to show you a little bit about that. But also moved to Las Vegas, so started up the business over here. So yeah, haven't touched Chicago SEO keywords in probably about 3 years now. So anyways, moving on, keyword classification. This is probably the most important part of this, is understanding these classifications. So we talked about the first one already, exact match, right? Exact match anchor text means it matches the exact keywords you're targeting. For this anchor text, there's only one possible anchor text, right? For Chicago SEO, the exact match anchor text is Chicago SEO. If there's anything else within that string, it's not an exact match anchor text. Now, the only scenario where I consider it an exact match is if the string contains variables like symbols or quotations. So if it was Chicago SEO plus sign, I would consider that an exact match. If it was Chicago SEO in quotes, I would consider that an exact match. Okay, now we also have the next one is an exact match fragment. Now essentially that means taking the individual words in your exact match keyword and breaking them up. So if you have a 3-word keyword, if it was, which we'll go into an example, it wouldn't just be Chicago and SEO. Say it was Chicago PPC marketing was the keyword, right? Chicago, PPC, and marketing would all be fragments. Chicago PPC would be a fragment. PPC marketing would be a fragment. So that's what a fragment is. Now the last one, just pertaining to the exact match standalone anchors, is the exact match variation, which is essentially a variation of the exact match anchor string. Okay, so it means it's in a different order, it's in arranged a different way, but the main point in this anchor text is that it doesn't contain any other keywords, okay? And you'll see at the top here, underneath the heading, it says ignore all prepositions, okay? So we don't count in or near or, by, things like that. So SEO Chicago, it only contains the fragments SEO in Chicago. SEO in Chicago only contains Chicago and SEO. You see how each one has SEO and Chicago in it. None of them actually say Chicago SEO together though, right? So it doesn't have the word Chicago and SEO, that exact string, together in that order, right? So it's either SEO Chicago, SEO in Chicago, SEO near Chicago, some type of variation. But the point is that it only contains the exact match keyword fragments, but it has to contain all the fragments. If it was just Chicago or SEO, then it's just an exact match fragment. Okay, so now moving on to the next one. exact match string. Now, what I want to point out is these next three are variations of the first three, except for the fact that they contain other keywords, right? Other terms. So you'll see an exact match string. It contains the exact term in the anchor text, Chicago SEO, the exact term in that order right next to each other. So an exact match string has a exact match anchor in it, but also contains other terms. So it's Chicago SEO expert, where to find Chicago SEO, or professional Chicago SEO company. The next one is an exact match fragment string, which is essentially the exact match fragment with other keywords, but it doesn't contain Chicago and SEO. It just contains one or the other and then other words. So Chicago advertising services, nearby SEO experts, or local SEO company. See how none of them contain Chicago and SEO. It only contains one or the other, and then it has additional terms. Now, exact match variation string, same concept. It's not the exact match in the exact order. It contains all of the fragments within the term, but it contains other terms like services company. So we have SEO services in Chicago, Chicago's expert SEO company, and SEO Chicago services. Now, the last one here is LSI. Now, LSI is essentially any term, right, that is a actual thing that is in relation to whatever it is your main keyword is, right? So it doesn't mean like SEO. So we have marketing, search engine optimization company, advertising service, first page organic rankings, essentially anything that is an actual term in relation to SEO, but it doesn't necessarily have to be SEO, right? Chicago SEO can be the main keyword, but an LSI term could be something like #1, right? Because #1 rank, right? That can correlate. It's something that you might see come up in anchor text. So you kind of have to understand that it's not just like SEO or search engine optimization or search engine optimization company. It is a wide range of any terms that are being used outside of your exact match terms, right? So now the next bunch that we have are all branded versions of the ones we just went over. So we have branded exact match fragment, branded exact match variation, branded exact match string, branded exact match fragment string, branded exact match variation string, and branded LSI. So all 7 of those now have their own branded versions, which essentially means it's the same exact, it contains these terms, the same exact anchor text as these top categories, but it also mentions the company brand. So we have MILIS Marketing Chicago SEO, or MILIS Chicago SEO. That would be brand plus exact keyword. So it has the exact string Chicago SEO in there, and it has the brand, like that. Now, brand exact match fragment, right, just has a fragment, just says SEO, just says Chicago, but also contains the brand. We don't count prepositions, so this is an exact match fragment. Now, an exact match variation, right, so this contains other terms, or sorry, this doesn't contain other terms. This doesn't contain other terms. This is actually wrong, I'm noticing right here. This was supposed to be down 2 more, so, or 3 more actually. So this shouldn't say services, right? So a branded exact match variation has the brand, and then it has exact match variation. So it has the term Chicago and SEO in it, and it has my brand in it, but it doesn't have any other terms. So this should technically be SEO Chicago by MILIS, which I honestly wouldn't suggest that anchor text. But if this has the word services in it, now it's a string, right? Strings have additional words that are prepositions. So this would be a branded exact match variation string. So this should technically be down here, right? So this has Chicago ranking by MILIS SEO services. So we have Chicago SEO, we have additional words, and it's branded, so it's a string, branded, exact match variation, right? And then we'll move on to the LSI, same exact thing. Terms that do not contain my main keyword term, but also have my brand in it. So these are the bulk of keyword related anchor text, right? This is essentially, and we need all these classifications because otherwise we're going to have scenarios where we still can't truly define where we're going, right, with our anchor text selection. And even though there's some tweaking and some things you might do here and there, which we'll get into later, this will give us a foundation of building that picture that Google needs to see with the anchor text to rank it properly. Now, we do have these final classifications, which are definitely very important. Brand is a common one. Something I want to point out, though, is brand and brand variation. These are two different things, and there's something that I saw come up a lot in anchor text, and I noticed this a lot too when it came to exact match domains, and this is why I have brand only and brand variation. So brand only, there's only one anchor text for the brand. It is the brand. And however you identify that, it could be the most prominent anchor text. It could be the legal business name and the copyright of the website. For me, my legal business name is M. Milas Marketing, Inc., so I count that as my actual brand. Anything that is a variation of that, take off the period, take off the ink, just do M. Milas, that is a variation. And now this is especially important once you start getting into partial match domains and EMDs, because you can have brand variation with keywords, if that makes sense. And once you kind of get into that and see what I'm saying, you can have an exact match domain, right, or say a partial match domain, and it'll have a brand in it as well. So the most important thing, though, that I want to point out is that when you are dealing with partial match domains and exact match domains, right here at the bottom we have a little note. EMDs and PMD website anchor text is to be ignored as brand anchor text and delegated to the corresponding anchor text classification type. So what that means is, say that my website was www.chicagoseo.com. Right? It's an exact match domain. What that means is anytime that I link to my site with Chicago SEO, or say the competition, let's talk about the competition because we're analyzing them. They're chicagoseo.com. Every time the competition links to their website with Chicago SEO, we are not counting it as a brand link. We are counting it as an exact match link because it is an EMD and the anchor text contains the exact match keyword. Right? So as far as painting that picture, whether it's a brand, whether it's a keyword, there's algorithms in place that kind of separate that thing. But at the same time, we know that having keywords present on a page, having keywords present in anchor text, it does influence rank. And anyone who's worked with PMDs or EMDs will notice that there is a certain influence that correlates with the URL or linking to it with the brand, even though the URL may be an EMD and the brand's different. But we need to account for the fact that Google is seeing our keywords in their anchor text that's linking to their site regardless of what their site is. Okay, so if say for instance the website was Chicago, and one of them is Chicago Style SEO, that's ranking in the top 5. Chicago Style SEO is a exact match variation string, because it has the word style in it, right? It's not a preposition, and it's a variation, Chicago Style SEO, so it doesn't have the exact string right next to each other, Chicago SEO. It's Chicago and SEO separated from each other, and it's got style in the middle. So exact match variation string. So anytime they link to their website with the term Chicago Style SEO, we're classifying it as an exact match variation string. Okay? Now, the last ones here are URL. This is just like the brand. There's only one exact URL, and that is the URL that the page is currently live on. Right? Oops, let me go back. That is the page that the URL is currently live on. So if they were HTTP, now they're HTTPS. The URL is HTTPS, and then the HTTP is a URL variation. URL variations are important to consider as an anchor text because this accounts for not using the HTTP, not using the www. If you're using a link shortener, right, some type of 301, if people move the website and there's a backlink that has the anchor text of a Google URL shortener or maybe the old URL domain, and that's 301, and we have to account for that because we can't just assume that, oh, they're all URLs and group them all together, and then if we just build all the exact same anchor text with the URL, that's going to look natural, right? That's not natural. That's not the way it actually is. So we have to have that separate classification. And now the last two, very simple note text. We're talking about image links or no anchor text. You can technically create a hyperlink on a page without a clickable link, but I don't recommend doing that. So these are image links is how I treat them when building my links. And then generic, which is visit us, click here, learn more information. So now I know that 20 classifications, I believe it's 20, right? Yeah, I originally started off with I think it was 10, and it's kind of expanded over the years as I've played around with anchor text. So might get updated soon and maybe have some more, but from what I've learned over the past year or so, when I do this analysis, everything tends to really fit into one of these categories, and it's classified. The classification is simple enough where there's not too much confusion of where things go, or when it comes time to actually select an anchor text, understanding what I should be doing. So now that we've gone over anchor text classification, let's start going over the most important part, which is the actual analysis and breakdown and everything. So I already did a few examples here, but I'm going to just go through. So for the first example I'm going to go through is Web Design Chicago. And hope if I can spell Chicago right. And I would also do this in incognito so that you can get a clear view on what is actually ranking and you're not influenced by signed in or anything else. So we can see our top 5 sites here. Okay. Now what we want to do is you can analyze the top 3, sometimes the top 5, depending on what's ranking, how it's ranking, will determine how many I analyze. Okay, so say I'm a local business, right? I'm trying to rank for a keyword as a local business, and for the most part I see Yelp, Angie's List, and all these big websites, right? Probably don't have a lot of links to the inner pages, mostly authoritative. In that case, I might go down a little further and choose some more websites to kind of include in my analysis so I can get a little bit more data, right? Because someone was like Yelp, if Yelp's ranking, they may only have a few links, and that's not really going to give you a good idea of overall anchor text optimization. So a good number to work with is 5. The top 5 spots seem to be the most important. There's a lot more variables that need to be affected when affecting rankings in those spots. But again, as I said before, you may have sites that are blocking anchor text. I know as a fact that there's sites blocking anchor text for some of these because I rank them. But the point is that we can take these websites now, and we want to take the exact URL and go over to Ahrefs. I use Ahrefs. You could use anything you want. I think Ahrefs is the biggest database that I found recently. I move around a lot. You know, a tool comes out, seems to have a better database. I'll probably, jump ship over to there. So Ahrefs, we want to come over here. Now, a few things that I want to point out is, first of all, we want to do the URL. We don't want the domain because we don't want to look at all the backlinks going to this website. We want to know just the backlinks going to the exact page that's ranking. So not too big of a deal if you're looking at an inner page, right? Something like this that is an inner page. But when you're looking at a home page ranking, you got to make sure it's on the URL, definitely. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead, and there's 2 things we want to gather for every single spot that we're going to analyze. And that is the anchor text itself, the full anchor text report with all the terms in it. So let me jump over here. And so we have the anchors here. What we want to do is download this. And now the second thing we want to download is this terms one, which is a breakdown of the actual terms within all the keywords, essentially the one word anchor texts, right, that are being used, because we're going to be using both of these to kind of build our strategy. So we'll download both of these. So once we do that for the top 5 websites, what we really need to do now is go through this sheet and classify every single one of these anchor texts. Sometimes you're going to have a lot, and this can take a while. I actually just did this earlier today. So all these rows, I'll show you some tidbits and stuff to get around this. This isn't right here. Let me jump back over here. We're on domain. See, let me go back to URL. It's like there wasn't that many rows before. It's only like 200 and something. So let's click search. And then let's go ahead and delete these real fast so I don't get mixed up. Okay, so back over here, URL. Now let's go back to the anchor text. Yeah, you saw there was like 400, it kept going, anchor text there, and we don't need to analyze all those. We just need to know the anchor text going directly to the page. So now we're on URL, right? A lot less anchor text here. Still a bunch, but way less than the 400 something that we had before. So we download that, and then we want to jump over, download our terms. And again, we want to do this for all the sites that we're analyzing. So if it's the top 5, top 3, whatever that is, we want to get all those. So we'll download that one there. So now we're looking at this one, and you'll see we have about 230 anchor text, because the top line is the heading. So this took me about 30-40 minutes to really classify. If your top ranking sites have this many anchor text, then you may only need to analyze the top 3, to get a good idea. This is the only site that was ranking in the top 5 that really had this much anchor text. So once we get in here, the easiest way that I have found to classify these is, first of all, we want to get rid of everything we don't need. So referring domain totals, we don't need that. Referring domains with anchor text, this is the % we want. Okay, we do not want referring domains do follow. We do not want referring domains or anchor text by page. We want to choose by referring domain. So they could have, one link on the site with their brand name, and they could have 500 different pages with that link. So by looking at the referring domain, we're really saying we want to focus on how many links from different websites we're building with these anchor text, not how many pages on a website are we going to put our link on, right? I hope that made sense and didn't get too confusing. So we're going to look at referring domains with anchor text %, and then let's just go ahead and move this row. I'm going to move it all the way over here. And now what I'm going to do is show you my management spreadsheet. This is what I use to essentially determine, do the analysis, get my ratios, manage the link building, and all that, pretty much to keep this, know what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and not be guessing, right? So right here, let's jump back. Oh, sorry. Right here we have, you see all of our anchor text classifications. These are the top 5 sites. We're going to be putting our % right here. And right at the top here I have abbreviations: exact match fragment, exact match variation, exact match string, exact match fragment string. All those classifications that we just went through. And I'm going to just copy that and jump back over to my other sheet here and just paste that right in there. And then we can delete this. And now we are pretty much ready to go, right? We can start taking these, so Orbit Media, and we can put these where they go. So we can put that under brand, right? Orbit Media Studios, brand variation. And again, it's not that big of a deal which one you identify as the brand, as long as you pick one and that is your brand, right? And you want to choose obviously the most pertinent. This is 34, this is 22. They're not too far apart, so you could switch that up if you want. But as long as you pick just a plain brand, because we need to have a classification for brand variation. Now, URLs and all this other stuff, so you can see how this could take a while, right, to go through here. Some little tidbits and tricks that I'll do. First of all, you want to highlight the top row here, and you want to go to, where is it? Is it on page layout? Right here, view, freeze panes, freeze top row. So that way as you scroll down, you don't lose that that key at the top there to tell you where everything is. Now the next thing is, if you come over here and you highlight it all, and then you go to data, sort, and you have data in your headers, and you sort by the anchor text, and you do the value A to Z, a lot of the time what it'll do is group a large chunk of these together with URLs, with brand, with you know, just like all these. See Chicago web design, if that's your keyword, you know, these are all exact match strings or fragments, and you can select a lot of these, you know, once in chunks and kind of move them, you know, all over to wherever you need to go. So that'll kind of help speed up the process a little bit. So let me just jump over to a finished spreadsheet real quick. And so we'll go to this one right here. So this is the completed spreadsheet. Now, one thing I want to point out is after I had this all separated, and you see we got the totals down here at the bottom, the percents are in 2 decimal places. And you want to make the percents in 2 decimal places. If you just highlight all these, right click, go format cells, do percent, 2 decimals, click OK. Now, the reason we need to do this is because we need to make some adjustments. Because when we download the anchor text from Ahrefs, they, you see like these 1%, it says less than 1%. It's not actually 1%. Okay, it's actually less than that percent. So when we go over to our original spreadsheet here, you'll see if I jump back over here, I'll just leave those out. But even here, if I add all these up, it's 2,044%, or sorry, 244%, right? So we'll put that in decimals. So 244%, because these ones aren't actually ones. These are less than 1%. So what we do, or what you want to do, is adjust that 1% until it's close to the 100%. Now, you don't need exactly 100%, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But you'll see here I replaced it with 0.1%. And really all I did is I went up here, I go to replace, and I should point this out first. When you're all done with these totals here, right, you just want to make little formulas. You can click in the box, go to formula, do this auto sum, and then highlight all this column right here. So it adds up all those anchor text in that column, like that, and then you can just click this little box right here and kind of drag it across them all, and it'll copy that formula for the whole row across them all. So then it'll just tell you what the anchor text is based on adding them all up in these rows, right? And then if you want, let's do an auto sum, and I'll add up all these totals, and you'll see we're at about 106.9%. Okay, now when you see I replaced all the 1% with 0.1%, and what I did is I went to find and replace, and for this example I'll do 0.0%, and I'm going to replace it with the 1%. Find next. Okay, let's get rid of the percent. Find next. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Copy. Doesn't have a 0. So it looks like that. And we're going to replace it with 1%. Okay, so replace all. Alright, so this is what it originally looked like before I changed it. And you see we have 304% for our anchor text. So that's going to drastically throw off our other anchor text if we don't account for the fact that these ones aren't really ones. So you can go to find and replace, and you just put in your 1%, and then you can put in, I usually start off with 1%, but you could start off with 0.2. Sometimes they're different. Replace all. And so now that we replaced it all with 0.2, you'll see we're at 128. So we're still a little bit higher. So I'll undo that, right? So now we're back to 1%. Undid the find and replace. Go back to find and replace. And let's just change this to 0.1 and then do replace all and see how that worked. And that's essentially what I did. So now I got it down to 106.9%. Not exactly 100, but it's close. Okay? And I'm going to show you real quick just some of these other ones that I did. So here's one of the ranking sites that we did. This one already had a pretty good average, so we didn't really do any adjustments. This one did too. I know some of these had a lot more. So like this one, you see we adjusted it to 0.4% for the less than 1%. And when we add all these up, formula, add all these ones up right here, we have 102.6%. So it's close, it's close to 100. Just keep it simple, do 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, and get it as close to 100 as possible. Now, once we have all that figured out for all of our sites, top 5 sites, what we need to do is start copying this data over to our spreadsheet. So looking at our management spreadsheet we have right here, what we need to do is start putting this data right over here. So here's our totals, right? And then here's our sheet right here. So we have 2%, right? And this actually, I don't know why this isn't showing right. Format cells, percent, it should be 2 decimals. And this should be 2 decimals. That will be fixed in your download, so you won't have to worry about that. Okay, so we have 2%, and you'll see as I'm putting these in here how there's averages showing up here, and then once I start putting the rest in, you'll see how it kind of adjusts. So 2, 0.2, 5.2, 0.1, 1, 1.6, 1, 0.1, 0.7. Okay. 0.4, 0, 0.8, 2.3, 22.1, 38.4, 3.1, 17.1, 0.3, 8.5. Oh, I missed something somewhere. Yeah, not sure where I missed that. So let me just put 1% in here. Obviously, you want to double check this, make sure all this is copied over properly. But you see now what happens is we have an odd number percent, right? This is 106.9%. So we need to figure out what these percents equal if this was out of 100% instead of out of 105%. So what it does is it figures out the average of all these rows. Right now the average just equals this because this is the only field we have filled out. So it first figures out the average and then figures out the average total percent that these all equal up to. And then we take the, we have a formula here that will convert this percent into the proper percent based on 100% as opposed to 105.9%. So this will give us our final anchor text classification ratios, right? And now that we look through that, see if we go over here now, let's just put like 4 here, 4%, you'll see how everything adjusts. Now the average is 3% and adjusted is at 2.81% because we're over 100%, right? So if we put 1% here, see how everything adjusts again, 21%, right? And as you go down and you're putting these different classifications in here, you will eventually get your exact averages. Okay, so now that you have a pretty good idea, downloading the sheets, updating this here, I'm going to jump on over to the completed workbook that I had here, and I got a few examples I could take you through and kind of show you how this works. So this is the template here. First of all, when you're starting a new analysis, you're going to want to put your target URL in here. Oops, that's going to open. And then you're going to want to put your target keyword in here. So you know what your exact match keyword is, and you know what your target URL is. So this is going to be your exact match keyword, or exact URL anchor text. This is going to be your exact keyword anchor text. And then you could also classify or clarify the brand in here if you like. I usually don't do that. I know the brand of the site. So now, with the Web Design Chicago, I went through each one of these, and you'll see I have a page on my site, michaelmilas.com, website designer. Our keyword is Web Design Chicago. And over here we have all of the anchor text analysis figured out and entered in here. You can see I went through each one of these spreadsheets and separated them and then copied them over. And you'll see the average of the total percents. We have 108.38%, so we had to adjust these averages, so it's out of 100. So this is our final anchor text ratios by anchor text classification, and that data is automatically copied over to here, right here. And you'll see as we scroll up and down, these top fields are locked, so we can continually see those. Now, what this portion of the spreadsheet does is allows us to identify how we're building our anchor text. And when we go ahead and build an anchor text, see if I go ahead and put MILIS, right? Now I just need to come over here and classify what type of anchor text this is. Now, if my brand's MILIS Marketing Inc., this would be a brand variation. You just go ahead and put a 1 right over in that box and hit enter. Now, what this is going to do is update the current percentages for your anchor text right here. Okay, and these color classifications will tell you essentially what areas need the most improvement and which areas are doing the best. Now, if it is green, what that means is it is within 1% of the target percent. So it's either within 1% over or 1% under. If it is yellow, that means that it is within 1 to 2% over or within 1 to 2% under. If it is red, that means you are over 3% or over 2% with your anchor text. And so it's the red areas that you really want to focus on the most, right? So now if I go over here and I put Web Design Chicago, of course I always do that, Chicago, and then I would put that over here as my exact match, hit enter. You see now we have 50% of our anchor text is exact match keyword, right? So we have all these red areas that I might do an exact match fragment string. So an exact match fragment would be just web design or design Chicago, and a string would be other terms, but not my brand. So maybe I'll do web design services, and that's an exact match fragment string. And you'll see how we're starting to kind of slowly build this out. Now, when you've only built 3 anchor texts, you don't have to be as concerned with the percentages, right? Because it's 1 or 2 anchor text. But this is why I normally like to start off with some good branded anchor text overall with my campaigns, because it kind of takes the heat off of this 30%, exact match or exact match variations and such. Now, the only other thing that we need to do to finish setting up this sheet actually is understanding our LSI terms, our string terms. So where do these terms come from, right? Services, company, Chicago, marketing, or sorry, not Chicago, that's an exact term, marketing or internet or ranking or website, right? Website isn't the term web, it's website. So where do we get all those terms from? Now, to do that, we have this section, this LSI term section right here, and that's why we downloaded the single terms of these anchor texts. Now, what we do with that is we go into each one and we break it up right here. So we take these, and these are the anchor text, these are the percents, and we did this for each and every one with that second sheet that we downloaded. Here's the single term anchor text, here's the percents, and we compiled them all into one spreadsheet, removed all the duplicates, and then removed all the URLs and brands and generic anchor text, and we were left with essentially our primary group of LSI or related terms as far as what Google is currently seeing for these terms, right? And you see agency, blog, company, designers, developer, development, director, firms, group. I mean, infographic. I mean, it makes sense, right? Portfolios. If you're a web design company, check out our web design portfolios. A term that a lot of people may not even think of when they're looking at their anchor text because they're not thinking kind of along those lines of, portfolio. They're thinking more like service or company or identifying what they are and not thinking of what type of anchor text would be natural. So what we want to do is take this list right here and we go ahead and we drop it into our LSI terms right here. So boom, now we have this. So now whenever we're over here, right, exact match, fragment, these right here, these are pretty much defined. Chicago SEO, Chicago SEO in Chicago, or sorry, web design Chicago would be exact match fragment would be web design or Chicago, exact match variation would be web design in Chicago or Chicago web design, right? And then we have the strings, right? the strings, the LSI, all those different things that don't pertain to the exact keyword, we now have here in our LSI list. And as far as the LSI list goes, you can expand upon this list. I do like to keep the percentages in here just as kind of a reference point. For instance, it's interesting to note that for Web Design Chicago, designers is one of the most prominent terms within the anchor text, right? So we may gear our strategy more towards designers when doing our variations and our strings, as opposed to putting design in there, right? So that's how we then can really get all of that together. Now, Chicago SEO. This is the Chicago SEO site. I said I was going to show you a little bit before. You can see how I had a lot of these links drop. So right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I got 13 links still pointing to this site. I think I had about 24. So maybe I lost like 9 or so, just some old expired domains, other projects, I just haven't really paid attention. So I put all this in here to kind of show an example of how I would do this if I was running this campaign currently and trying to, really rank for all this. So you see we have the LSI terms here, don't have the percents for some reason, and then we have my old stuff right here. So you can put your website, PBN website. If it's a Web 2.0, it's I don't usually include press releases and things that aren't solid, that I know aren't going to stay. Like a press release, you're going to lose a lot of those links, and you don't want to count 500 URL links from a press release and then you don't have them in a few months and you're still counting them as part of your anchor text strategy, right? So for the most part, this is for PBNs for me. Maybe some Web 2.0s. But generally, I'm working with PBN links or donation links or some type of guest post, which I would put in here too, I guess. So what I did is I put in my current backlinks that I currently have. You see I have the dates in here, and you would have the website normally. And then I classified my current anchor text. So if you have a list of all the links you've built to your site, you can go ahead and now throw them in this sheet. If you have where they came from, you can put that all in here, the dates. If you don't have any of this info, you could jump on over to Ahrefs, right? Grab whatever info they have and then kind of use that for your base of where you're at with your optimization. But now as you put these in here and you start putting the markers on the classification for your anchor text, you're going to kind of see where you're kind of lying within the parameters of what is currently ranking. Right, and now what makes this so simple now is because, say, I put all these in here just to kind of show a little bit of the, how it kind of works out in the percentages here. But say I've already built all these links. Like I've built all these links over the past few months, and now I'm trying to get up another spot or two, and I'm trying to figure out what to do next. Okay, first thing that you're going to want to look at is red, right? The red sections are the sections that need attention. Now there's two types of red sections, ones that are over, ones that are under. If it's over, like this, see it's 6%, our target's 2, that means we don't want to build anything there, right? Because if we build something there, this is only going to go up. So our next link, we want to make sure that we pick something that is in need of attention, that is below the target range. So right here, I'm looking at exact match variation, exact match fragment, that's over. This is under, but I'm seeing a very more of a lacking all around with URL, right? Because we got URL and URL variation. And again, you need to be mindful of the fact that you can't just go aggressive. Just because Google says that there's a 15% exact match anchor text doesn't mean that you could build your next links all exact match to just pump up this percent, right? So we want to still kind of spread it out and do this differently, but more importantly is we don't have to guess. I mean, you could put one as a fragment. Personally, I like to keep it as more branded as possible, right? And of course, I'll do less or more based on my analysis, but when I see the brand links, the URL links, the generic, those type of links lacking, and it's getting more heavy optimized on the keyword side, I generally want to go over here. So, maybe I would do a link for exact match URL variation right here, right? And now we see now exact match variation here dropped. So now this is a lot lower than that. So maybe the next one now that I would be looking at building would be right over here. So I'd put that there. You see now, boom, we're right back in the green with that one. We're still too optimized for this, okay? But now we're even further down with the URL. So go ahead and put a URL anchor text, right? And just keep moving on, And it's not about having your anchor text perfect. It's about building it in a way that seems natural, that adheres to essentially what Google is currently telling us, or what we know, or at least enough of what we can know about what Google is saying is acceptable, or is painting that overall picture for what the terms are ranking for, right? So now maybe I would come over here and we would do this brand term. Oh, sorry, that one's over, so not that one. Come on over here and do a variation string, right? And then maybe come back over here, do another brand, come back over here, do a fragment string. Now we're going to come over here, do this one there, and then, come over here. Right now we're actually looking pretty good. So our two reds are over now, okay? So what we want to do is look at the yellow, right? Where are we lacking over here? So we got this, that one's under, that one's under. I would probably go here. This looks like the biggest gap. Probably boom, that one. So now we got the biggest drops over here, over here. So I'd probably do a generic, right? And now, again, you'll see that it's not so much that, oh, it's, this anchor text or that anchor text. I don't have to guess, right? I can kind of go by this and determine how I want to choose those anchor text, right? And so, like, for this one right here, the branded LSI, the way I would choose my anchor text is, I know it's a brand, right? M-Milus, and maybe I'll put marketing or whatever, Inc., maybe not, I don't know. It just has a brand reference. And now LSI, right? So I would jump on over to my LSI terms right here: company, service, traffic, optimization, organic. So boom, I like that. Organic, M-Milus, marketing, organic, traffic, consultant. There we go. So probably spelled something wrong there because I suck at spelling. Anyways, you see how I just created that anchor text based on the classification and the data that I have, right? So it's that simple. Now, we have this built out. We have this spreadsheet. We know the competition's ratios. We have all this ready to go. We're building out our anchor text. The last part of this, and this is still the most important part, because you cannot, and I'm going to say this really, I'm going to make a big point here. You cannot blindly build links to your website and not watch what is happening. You cannot build anchor text links and not look at the data, right? Because the second you start ignoring the data is the second you're guessing, right? And just because we looked at the top ranking sites and took an average, that doesn't mean that we got this figured out. It doesn't mean that we're done. Right? You still need to compile your own data. You need to build, you need to say, okay, I'm off this percent here, I'm going to build this link. You need to build this link, and you need to put the date, and you need to put the website it's from, and you need to watch what happens to your website. Watch what happens to that page, how it responds over the next few days, or the next week, or whatever. You need to analyze those results and take that data into consideration when choosing your ongoing anchor text. Okay, and what I mean by this is, because there are some scenarios that aren't accounted for just by anchor text classification. For example, Chicago SEO Company is a exact match string, right? Has Chicago SEO and then has company, so it's an exact match string. The one thing this isn't saying is how many exact match strings we would necessarily need to convey being natural. Okay, that's what I wanted. This is about being natural, not being correct anchor text or authoritative. This is about being natural. For example, if you have a website, it's a brand website, and you're trying to rank for dog bones, and your anchor text looks like dog bones, best dog bones store, buy dog bones, where to find dog bones, get a dog bone. Regardless of the anchor text percentage, we're not like talking about that right now. What we're talking about is the fact that just because you're matching the percent doesn't mean that you're matching the overall understanding of the optimization, right? So some sites might have more aggressive with some repeating anchor text, right? If you have 5,000 backlinks and you have not a single repeating anchor text, in my brain that says that something probably isn't right. That's a little weird. You're not going to have that many links without a repeating anchor text. So the point is you need to look at your own data. You need to build links, look at what's happening to your site, and take that into consideration. Okay, this might say 8.4%, right? And I might build an exact match link, and my rankings might skyrocket, right? And then I might see, okay, I need to put a brand link, right? And I put a brand link, and then maybe it doesn't move at all. And I say, okay, maybe let's try the aggressive. Maybe let's do another exact match or a variation based on, if it's a fragment, maybe I'll put it there, whatever. But the point is then I'll look and say that the website shoots up again, right? What that's telling me is that my strategy needs to be focused more around balancing between pushing the relevance through the anchor text than just considering the anchor text ratios for individual terms. Okay, and I'm sure that might get a little bit confusing, but the most important takeaway from this, if you don't take away anything from this end part that I'm trying to get through to you, you need to collect your own data, track your rankings, look at what's happening when you place these links, take that into consideration. So that is pretty much it. This is how I analyze the top sites. This is how I classify my anchor text. This is how I do this to ensure that I'm not just blindly selecting terms when I'm building links to my website. Now, when I'm doing small local sites, a little roofing company in a little town somewhere or plumber somewhere, you may not want to go through all this, right? You may not want to, you're not going to be building a ton of PBN links to rank for, some little town plumber. But if you're stuck on page 2, if you're in a high competitive niche, if you're building links and not moving, if you are lost as to what anchor text to even choose, if you are starting any type of new niche that you are 100% unfamiliar with, and this is especially important when it comes to your LSI terms, because you'll find some interesting terms that relate to keywords that you probably just never even thought of, or really you didn't even really assume how powerful that term related. So those are definitely scenarios that you want to dig deep, do the analysis, and make sure that that you have all this in order before you start blindly building anchor text. So if you want a copy of this spreadsheet, if you want a copy of the keyword classification breakdown and everything that I went over here with all the files, all the examples and everything, just go below the video, click the share button. That's all I ask. Please share this. This is really important to me. I get this question so many times, and I really believe having this type of analysis and this process will help a lot of people wrap their minds around anchor text, what it is, how it works, how to choose it. So please share this post, click the button below to download the files, and then get in the Facebook group. Get in the Serp Focus Facebook group. If you have any questions about this, the analysis, concerns, anything at all, get in there, ask questions. I'm in there all the time answering questions and making sure everyone can take full advantage of the information we have here on our website. So that's all I got for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I know it was a long video. I really hope you got something great out of this. My name's Mike with Serp Focus. You all have a great and wonderful day.